owners could be costing themselves millions down the road, and I just think that should give them more incentive to bite the bullet here and pay the players.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to say that it is going to be the owners that blink because of exactly what you said. The owners do want to recoup something. They want to make something by the end of the season. And yeah, they don't want they don't want an unknown going into next season.
This also drastically affects the offseason and the market value that some of these players are trying to establish for themselves, because the value is simply not there if they're not bringing in the money. So if they don't have the season, you've lost all that money, and owners are now going to think differently. So players like DJ LeMahieu, who basically had to settle on a contract, and now that he's waiting to get another one, he might get screwed over in this offseason when he's probably going to get paid about $3 million this year if the owners win.
In the beginning, there was baseball. It is Thursday, May 28th, off to a great start. I am CJ. I am here, of course, with Evan, and today we've got a very special guest with us. He is the host of the Benny and the Bets podcast. You can catch him on Twitter at Cushman, MLB. Terry Cushman, how are you doing today, man?
I'm so depressed. Yeah. Just with the current state of how things are going.
Yeah. Nothing to really take your mind off of anything. The thing that we all kind of sit back and take in whenever things are going tough is sports, and we just don't have that.
Yeah, nothing. I've watched old WWE
stuff.
No,
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Evan is surrounded now.
I've already watched my whole childhood on there, so it's all new stuff.
You want to know what's
now.
hilarious? I've been doing the exact same thing. I started it pretty much when DX formed, like 97, and I'm just blowing through. I'm about to get to WrestleMania 15. I'm just because you can't watch the stuff that's on now. It's so awkward. There is it's like trying to watch stand-up comedy without an audience. It just doesn't work. Oh man, yeah. Evan was not expecting us to go full into wrestling right off the.
I mean, I like wrestling.
Evan, how are you doing today? I forgot to ask you. You didn't even say your line. I didn't give you a chance. You got to say the line. Come on, do the fun.
This is 27 Down, the perfect podcast for the perfect game. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, man. Unfortunately, I gotta have you.
No, I like wrestling, but for some reason, I just have more fun when I watch it with like a group of friends. So like solo, I haven't been watching it too much.
I get it. It's kind of like porn. Some people like watching it with a group.
Jesus Christ.
With that said, actually, Terry, I have a question for you, and I've kind of been curious about this ever since Mookie Betts got traded. Have you ever considered changing the name of the podcast?
You are the 2,341st person to ask me that, and the answer is no. That's actually the third name I've had in the 190-something episodes that I've done. Initially, it was the Fire Feral podcast, and I kind of regret even changing it to that. Then I renamed it after the blog, and then we settled on the Benny and the Bets name eventually. But I just look at it as it's just a name that'll stand the test of time. Is it a little awkward that he's with the Dodgers now and probably, with another team after whatever we get out of this season? Yeah, it will be. But 10 years from now, if I'm still doing the show, we're going to look back and think that was a really cool era. Yeah. And I'm just going to keep it.
Gotta be, it's a catchy name for a podcast, man. Good job. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like it a lot too.
Yeah. What went through your mind? And I just out of curiosity, because as a Red Sox fan, you had to know that was coming, that at some point he wasn't going to be a Red Sox player anymore. What went through your mind on that day?
I was rooting for the trade because I'm a value guy, and that puts me in an extreme minority of baseball fans. All the homers wanted Mookie Betts to be a Red Sox player for life, but I don't see the value in signing a $400 million contract. You can get an ace pitcher, a top flight reliever, and a very serviceable power bat for that money. And I think you're better off to go that route than blow it all on that one player and then still have to go get those guys anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad he's gone. I don't think Mookie really embraced Boston while he was here. John Lester, before that infamous lowball situation, said that they would have to rip the shirt off his back, for him to play for another team. Mookie really wasn't that type of guy. So,
Yeah, I mean, realistically, for the money that he's going to end up getting, you could probably get a couple of players you mentioned. You could probably get a pretty damn good pitcher and a pretty damn good power bat to plug in. And in that sense, you're right. I mean, these $400 million contracts are getting scary. How do you sign one of those as a team in a sport where you hurt your knee and that completely takes you out of the outfield?
You guys are the only team in Major League Baseball history to win a World Series with a position player making north of $200 million. And that was 2009, Alex Rodriguez. And I'm not trying to jab you, but I mean, you guys paid a hell of a price, in the years that followed, because you went into a little bit of purgatory. The Red Sox are they're going to have at least a brief version of that, with our current situation. But I just think those massive contracts, except for that one instance with you guys in 2009, just end up being a roadblock to a World Series.
Right.
They never worked
and
out.
And even in 2009, I don't think you can give the full credit to a player like A-Rod. You had players like Matsui who really stepped up, and they were making, less than half of what A-Rod was making.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need those guys. But I think what kind of hurt you guys was A-Rod was on big money. Sabathia was, Teixeira was, you can't have too many of those contracts anyway. But that's a good point with Matsui. Johnny Damon had a great year that year for who he was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of baseball, I guess, what do you think? Are we gonna see professional baseball this year?
I just asked this on Twitter literally minutes ago, had people put a percentage on it, and most of the answers are below 30% from the people that have responded. I'll say about 50-50. The problem here is that the players aren't all united in wanting to play. They're not thumping their chests all gung-ho to play, and I think that's going to complicate things. And I just they're on extreme ends of the spectrum right now, the players and the owners, and somebody's gotta make a major compromise here, and I don't know if it'll happen.
So is that what you think is ultimately going to be the deciding factor? Is just no one's going to blink, July's going to come and go, and then everyone's going to go, well, what the hell is the point now?
That could very well happen. I mean, Max Scherzer is the most powerful player in Major League Baseball in terms of influence with the union and influence with the league. And he basically said last night that they're not budging. So, with my Mookie comments a second ago, I kind of side with the owners in those situations. Like, I didn't blame the ownership for trading Mookie, but in this situation with the negotiations with the pay structures, I'm completely on the player's side. Yeah. They already agreed to the prorated salaries. So if it's an 82 game season, it's roughly half the pay, and I think that's more than fair. All these owners are still going to be billionaires 5 years from now, regardless of how this season proceeds.
Yeah, this grossly affects the players far more than I think it does the owners. You're also dealing with lower numbers for them, even though they're still in the millions.
Yeah, but then the question kind of becomes, well, you got guys like Scherzer, but I mean, Scherzer's already made millions and millions and is gonna make millions and millions. And that's where you got guys like, Trevor Bauer and Blake Snell. I mean, they're same for them. They've already made their millions. They're going to continue to do so. What about and you kind of said this already, Terry, that there's going to be a little bit of a split in the players that aren't making all that much. I'm sure for every Max Scherzer, you probably have 10 players making somewhat close to league minimum who are saying, okay, I could kind of use a paycheck soon.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot worse for those guys. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, another thing here to consider is they're taking a huge risk by having this huge disconnect with the fans. If there's no baseball for a year, and we don't even know what next spring's going to be like. Maybe we're sitting at home in May and June wondering when next season is going to start. We have no idea. This is uncharted waters, but I think it's really risky for the league to have this long disconnect, and maybe the fans just don't come back in huge droves. So by not getting them engaged this season, owners could be costing themselves millions down the road, and I just think that should give them more incentive to bite the bullet here and pay the players.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to say that it is going to be the owners that blink because of exactly what you said. The owners do want to recoup something. They want to make something by the end of the season. And yeah, they don't want they don't want an unknown going into next season.
This also, sorry to cut you off, this also drastically affects the offseason and the market value that some of these players are trying to establish for themselves, because the value is simply not there if they're not bringing in the money. So if they don't have the season, you've lost all that money, and owners are now going to think differently. So players like DJ LeMahieu, who basically had to settle on a contract, and now that he's waiting to get another one, he might get screwed over in this offseason when he's probably going to get paid about $3 million this year if the owners win.
Yeah, and part of me also says that, listen, Tony Clark has not been all that great when it comes to being a union rep. I don't really have much confidence in the players managing to kind of keep their footing where it's at. Ultimately, I do still think that we're going to see baseball in July, and I do think that, yeah, there might be a little bit of negotiating done, but ultimately, I really don't think that the players are going to come away strong in this one. No, go ahead. Go for it.
Well, I'm also wondering, how is 37-year-old Justin Verlander going to bounce back after a long layoff? And, Blake Snell's worried about, Tommy John apparently, but the dude goes on the DL for stubbing his toe anyway. So he's probably got a lot of worries. But I just wonder how some of these older guys, Max Scherzer as well, Clayton Kershaw, how are they going to bounce back? There's just a ton of risk being taken by not getting this season going.
True. Yeah, that's true. What about guys like Snell and Bauer? How do you feel about how vocal they've been?
I haven't heard much of Bauer's recent comments. I know he took exception today to Scott Boras kind of, interfering, well, not necessarily interfering, but, publicly trying to influence the players. And, and I'm typically a Trevor Bauer guy. I don't mind that he's outspoken. I think he likes the tradition and the history of the game. I respect that. So I don't know. Another guy that seems to have problems right now is Mike Trout. He doesn't want to be away from his pregnant wife,
True.
And so some of these guys just don't want to come back. It's a mess.
How do you think, like, let's say MLB does this thing, right, where they say, okay, we'll bring the sport back, we'll open things back up if it's something where you're worried about infection, or if it's just something where you don't particularly feel safe in the environment, go ahead and sit at home, but you're not going to collect any paychecks. What would you think about that kind of an arrangement?
It's tough. I mean, what if Garrett Cole is one of those guys
I'd
for
be
you guys?
pissed, God damn it. That's what.
Pissed.
I if it's a big player that's the cornerstone of an organization, it would be an extremely tough situation.
I've waited over a decade to get Garrett Cole on the Yankees, and now I have to keep waiting because of this stupid COVID bullshit. It sucks, dude. It really sucks.
Ever since the guy decided to go back to college and
Ugh.
not sign with the Yankees out of high school.
No, and then he gets traded to the ass turds, and it's just like awesome. Just what we needed right now. Thank you.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, how about
the biggest?
Go ahead. No.
Go
Finish
ahead.
your thought. You're the guest. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the biggest bummer for me, because I was resigned to the fact the Red Sox are probably a third place team at best. So the biggest casualty this year is not getting to see the Astros play at road stadiums and just get utterly destroyed.
Yeah. It'll still happen.
I was really looking forward to that.
It'll still happen. People aren't going to forget about that. I'm telling you, the moment that they say our sport will open back up to fans on this day, everyone who goes to that Astros away game is going to go, this is it. This is when I can finally give those pieces of shit my 2 cents on how
I don't know, dude. If you're not on Twitter as much as me and Terry are, and I think a lot of people are just so tired of all the drama on every platform, and they're so sick of this COVID crap that a lot of people are just going to come back and just sit there quietly and take in baseball.
Yeah, well, you know something? What you're failing to understand is that humans in general are assholes. And I'm
an
one
asshole.
of them.
I'm going to fight.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. So people in general, when they know that they are going to have an opportunity to give someone a piece of their mind unrestricted, and it's taken away from them and then given back to them later on, they're still going to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Me and you drunk in the bleachers this year, if it happens, bro,
Well,
we're going to be loud.
You'll probably be drunk. I'll probably have like 5 PBRs and be kind of slightly drunk.
Son of a bitch.
Shout out to the Dugout, best bar by Yankee Stadium. Just throwing that out there. So how about this, Terry? If let's say we do have an 82-game season, let's say we do have a 14-team playoff, just like MLB wants to do, will the winner of that World Series be seen as legitimate?
I believe so. I mean, if most of the players show up and they don't stay home like you mentioned, and everybody shows up to play, I still think the best teams are going to go the furthest into the playoffs, and I would say it's legitimate.
I mean, I would agree with you. I would agree with you on that. And I'm mostly saying that because it's going to be the Yankees that do it. And I think that I think
then no, it won't be.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I guess it kind of depends on who wins, right? And who you ask and who wins. Like, you know.
Well, remember Seattle got off to that smoking hot start last year. They had a ridiculous start. Like, that could happen this year. Some team that has no business, making the playoffs could get in like that.
I do definitely remember them torching Chris Sale in Game 1.
Did you remember what happened though? To the Mariners, Mitch Haniger took a ball to his nuts and ruptured his ball sack and was out the rest of the season.
They took a dive.
And I think that's kind of why MLB wants to have 14 teams, because they recognize that there's going to be more flukes that probably find their way to the top after 82 games. And they want to say, okay, you won whatever playoff spot you got, fine. But we all know this other team would have ended up winning that. So let's appease the people who technically won it on wins and losses, while also making sure the teams that probably would have been there.
Right.
I don't think they should do it that way. I disagree with it. I think that it's 82 games. Whoever makes it, makes it. But I think that's what they were going for.
Well, I think they permanently want 14 teams anyway. There was a proposal for it, and Trevor Bauer, of all people, took exception and called out the commissioner. But I think that could become the norm. The best team in each league will get a bye, and then the 6 other teams on each side have to play a best 2 out of 3 and play their way into the regular brackets, and then the higher ranked one gets to choose
Oh,
their
I
opponent
hate that
That's the
so
worst.
much.
That is the goddamn worst. And I think they said something about how like they're
Yeah.
not going to have tiebreakers anymore. They're gonna do like an NCAA style committee. This was what Manfred wanted to have happen. It was months ago when they were proposing at the same time that they proposed a 14-team playoff.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, by the way, no tiebreakers anymore. We're just gonna have a committee decide, based on strength of schedule and blah blah blah, all that bullshit, who the team is that should make it from the tiebreaker.
He's such a terrible
Yeah.
commissioner. I mean, the 3 batter minimum rule, robot umpires. I'm drawing blanks on like 6 other things, but I hate this guy. He's got a complete vendetta against the pure tradition of the sport, and he's going to keep fixing it until it breaks,
Yeah.
I think.
I'll be honest with you though. Since about high school, I've been a robot umpire guy. I've always been one of those guys that's like, just get the calls right.
No.
I like the drama.
Everyone
though.
likes the drama until it bites their team in the ass.
I was an umpire,
Oh,
actually.
it will.
It was fun, sort of.
Yeah, until fucking Armando
Yeah.
Galarraga gets his perfect game taken away.
Oh.
I just saw a meme, and it had Galarraga on one side, and it said "My
Yeah.
Plans" up above it, and then it had Jim Joyce on the other side with 2020 above
I didn't see it, but I knew where you were about to go with that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was
That's
funny.
great. Speaking of people getting their plans taken away, lots of teams had plans to win the World Series in 2018, but then a team called the Red Sox won it, and now there seems to be lots of evidence out there that the Red Sox did very naughty no-no things. How did that scandal, once that came out, as a Red Sox fan, how did that make you feel?
Well, I felt that it was more of a misdemeanor, compared to what the Astros did. What they were accused of, obviously, was using the video room to relay signs, and it was really only viable to employ that form of cheating, if you will, when a runner was on second base. So, I mean, if they did it, it impacted the game to a degree, but I've always chalked it up to more along the lines of, a lot of teams were abusing the video room. The Yankees were listed in a Ken Rosenthal report that said, they had been doing it since 2015. Maybe not the same way, but using the video room. And I think from an outsider's perspective, for a lot of other teams, it didn't look great having Alex Cora as the manager of the team when he co-masterminded the biggest scandal of all time.
That's definitely a terrible.
So, yeah, and so I wasn't real worried about the consequences or whatever, but I kind of had a problem with the way the commissioner handled it. I mean, he kept delaying it and delaying it and delaying it, and then in the end, it's a guy named JT Watkins, who even Red Sox fans had never heard of.
Yeah, that's the guy that got suspended, right?
There.
Did we just lose Terry?
Yeah.
Terry, we lost you there for a second. Repeat that last thought.
I'm right here. Oh, sorry. JT Watkins was the guy they pinned it on. And the reason why the report didn't drop in late February, like the commissioner said, was because he was taking fire from every team, including you guys. And there was no way JT Watkins was going to play. That whole outcome of the investigation, it just wasn't going to play with the rest of the league. The commissioner would have got assassinated. And he's a terrible commissioner.
Probably by Astros fans, honestly. The Astros fans probably would have been like, what the fuck? You're giving us basically, well, I mean, they got a slap on the wrist too, but you're giving these guys a slap on the wrist compared to what we got. That probably would have been like a bad look on him.
Yeah.
So, Go for it. Go for it. Finish whatever you were about to say. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say. I mean, I was a huge proponent of firing Cora right after the Astros report dropped, and I was a little disappointed he only got a 1-year suspension.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
it sucks.
there's a lot of propaganda to bring him back next year.
Honestly,
in Boston.
listen. Honestly, I would not be the least bit surprised if this season ends, whether there's baseball or not, and Cora just finds his way onto another team. And
I wouldn't be either.
you know, it's sad because you got guys, justifiably, by the way, MLB players that are suspended. This amount of time off does not count towards their suspension. So Domingo Germán, who is accused of, I've got to make sure I have the right legal language here, accused of beating his wife, and if he did, he's a massive pile of garbage. He's going to rightfully get suspended, and rightfully that suspension, he has already been suspended, and rightfully this amount of time does not cut into his suspension. Why would that not go for anyone involved in the Astros scandal?
I have no idea. Yeah. I don't think Jeffrey Luno is ever going to be in the game again. I think AJ Hinch will probably manage again. I think Alex Cora also will.
I agree.
You know.
Yeah.
Also, one thing about the Red Sox that I think makes it a little easier for certain fans to accept that they won in 2018 is you guys were fucking dominant that entire postseason. I think you only lost about 3 games anyway. Astros didn't do that the year before. They struggled against us. They struggled against the other team. So that's just one thing. You guys were pretty dominant. I know JT Martinez was dominant.
Yeah, you know, here's an interesting set of stats, though. The Red Sox had losing records against every American League postseason team that year, except for you guys. And we beat you guys by 1 game, and it was game 162 where we got that, and it was a meaningless game because we were the 1 seed. You guys were where you were. You know, we were just resting. Both teams were resting guys, so it was meaningless that the Red Sox won 1 more game, and they had losing records against the A's, Indians, Astros, and whoever the other wild card team was.
Right.
And, you know, so we beat the crap out of all the bad teams, but we didn't do so good against the playoff teams. And I was leaning Red Sox. I was leaning picking the Red Sox going into that ALDS. And then when Severino was electric in the wild card game, I was like, oh, no way. The Yankees are going to beat us because we knew David Price was a guaranteed win for you guys. And I didn't know what Hale was going to give us with his shoulder. And, you know, Porcello, Evaldi, Erod, I caved at the last second and actually picked the Yankees to win that series. And then I picked the Astros to win. I was going to pick the Astros anyway. You know, I thought they were going to go all the way regardless. And then we won that one. And, you know, I felt pretty good about the Dodgers matchup, but I picked the Dodgers just so I wouldn't jinx anything. And, yeah. But, you know, I really thought we could be one and done for the 3rd year in a row that year.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here, folks. Terry Cushman says that the Red Sox were illegitimate in 2018 and that the Yankees should be the winners of that championship. I think everyone heard him say that. Don't argue with me. Terry, man, what do you want to talk about, man? I've kind of been taking the role here, but that's all my questions I got for you. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was just kind of wondering how you guys felt about your team because I already told you, and let this be a disclaimer again, you know, I was all for trading Mookie Betts. I was vehemently against extending Chris Sale, especially a year early. You know, so I destroy my own team on a regular basis on Twitter. You know, I'm famous for that. But I mean, I just feel like if I was a Yankees fan, I'd be a little concerned about a bunch of things. You know, Giancarlo has a lot of issues. You know, might not be healthy into his 30s. I'm starting to worry about Judge a little bit, you know, because he's a big guy, had some injuries. I'll give Judge credit in that he's a gamer. He's willing to grind through because he had that rib injury in September and just grinded all of October. But still, I mean, nature could take its course, and he could be injury prone.
So
And
the way that I feel, and Evan and I got into an argument over this in a show.
Because you're wrong.
No, I'm not. God damn it! Shut your mouth. I am currently, and I say that word currently with emphasis, a Giancarlo apologist. Mostly because, I mean, we've seen guys lose a couple of seasons back to back before, and then come through perfectly fine. I've also said that it was completely unfair for Yankee fans to expect a 59 home run season. That is insane to expect him to replicate what is probably going to go down in the record books as his best year of his career. Like, even without looking at all this injury stuff, that was clearly going to be the best year he'd ever put up, and he wasn't going to top it.
That's the one thing I agree with you.
And when he got hurt in spring training, and they said, yeah, he'll be hurt for like a week, everyone lost their minds. And he was fine by the time the season was supposed to start. Now, I'll say this. If Giancarlo Stanton goes down with a substantial, and I say the word substantial, not a 10-day injured list stand, I mean a substantial injury that puts him out for a long time, I'm off the boat. I cannot with him anymore. And I'll also say that the Yankees have him currently in their financial plans, because any team that signs or trades for, I'll say trades for, actually either way, any team that obtains a player that has an opt-out clause is going to operate with the assumption that the opt-out clause is not going to be exercised. So they already have a plan to build a team with Giancarlo Stanton as a part of that team.
Right.
Evan, anything you'd like to add to that? Or
yeah, my biggest concern is probably Domingo Germán. I think, I don't really want him on the team. I think he's a bit overrated, and if it comes out that he actually did do it, then, like I said, I don't want him on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's gonna come out. I think it is what it is now. But right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with you. Look, let's just say that. I mean, it's looking like it actually happened. We don't know. We don't know what happened because there was no criminal case that led.
He has a +4 ERA, but everyone is crazy about the amount of wins he got. I don't care how many wins he had. He has a huge run support where guys got him like 7 runs a game. Of course he's going to get wins.
So I guess Terry, to ultimately answer your question, my biggest frustration with the team right now is they just can't seem to figure out how to communicate to fans a player's injury. Because I still remember from a couple of years ago when Aaron Judge, he broke some bone. I forget what bone it was. I think it might have been something in his wrist or in his hand. I forget exactly what it was. But they were like, yeah, he'll be back in 2 weeks. And everyone was like, wow, that's crazy. I feel like I should be skeptical. And he missed like 2.5 months.
And that's not the first time they did it. They did it to Greg Bird, too. They had him go to surgery in March, and then they rushed his ass back and said, okay, this is your job. Fight for it. And he didn't do well, so they brought in Voit, and it ruined his career.
Yeah, and it's one thing after another, and you start to wonder, like, do these guys actually know what they're doing when it comes to player health?
Right.
The Red Sox do the same thing. I mean, Chris Sale probably should have had Tommy John last fall and had it, I think, in March. And, David Price had a magic elbow, so we get lied to all the time as well.
Yeah, it's just such a new thing that's happened with the Yankees. This never used to happen. And then suddenly within the last 2-3 years, everything becomes a lie or just this attempt to rush people back. I don't know. Frustrating. Yeah. It's annoying.
That's because George Steinbrenner was a reactionary fan just like us, so he wanted to know right away and wouldn't give a shit. He'd tell us.
Yeah, that's true. Why don't you tell us more about like what you do? Tell us more about your show. Tell us more about like what people can expect if they were to listen to Benny and Bets.
Well, like I said, I come across as kind of negative. I'm pretty critical about the team at times. I'm basically the anti-Jared Carrabis in a way. I do 2 shows a week. I have a different crew with me on each show. So we just kind of bounce off each other, and we have a set format, and it's pretty entertaining. I mean, last year we tripled in growth. According to PodTrack, we're downloaded in over 30 countries. So it's catching on, and it's kind of a bummer, we're not really recording much right now. So, you kind of like to hold that momentum that you have, but, I love it. And, I think I'll be doing it for a long time.
Yeah. You guys seem to have a pretty strong following, and that's pretty awesome. And good job, man.
Yeah, thanks. Are you guys on iTunes yet?
Yeah, we're on iTunes, Spotify. I mean, we have a YouTube channel.
Everywhere.
Yeah, we're on everywhere now. Spreaker. We just got a Facebook page today.
Yeah, fine.
I just made it today. I was bored. I was like, yeah, fuck it.
I have one too, but I don't use it much. I just feel like it's hard to get people to engage with it for some reason.
It's been pretty hard. Like, you get a lot of likes, but no one comments or clicks on links at all. That's what I've noticed in one day so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our producer Joe sometimes has questions for us, and I think it would be cool if he had prepared something for our special guest today. So it's at this moment.
What are you talking about? I just found out an hour ago we were doing it tonight.
All right. Well,
I spent all last night preparing questions for you guys.
Thank you, Joe.
I did have something I wanted to talk about real quick with Evan, though.
Just with Evan? What is he?
Well,
in
it's
trouble?
with all of us. No, it's not in trouble at all. No one's in trouble. So John Heyman, he's the guy that blocked you on Twitter?
That is correct.
He was on the
and Marcus Stroman.
I still love that.
I love Strowman.
And David Wells for like 3 days.
I don't know anything about John Heyman except I heard him on The Fan today. I was going for a drive to get some coffee.
He talked about me?
He did. He said his friend Egley was.
I thought you were being serious for a second.
No. He. What was he? What the hell was he saying?
Oh, cool. You're really prepared there, Joe.
Very prepared.
Fucking Mets fans, man.
All right. So John Heyman said that if some teams were allowed to have fans, he's all for, like, say, like the Texas teams could have fans, but the New York teams can't. And I'm guessing Boston would be in the same as New York because up here, like, we're not even.
What do you think my response is going to be? He can go fuck himself.
Well, it just seems ridiculous to allow some teams to have fans and then other ones to not. And I get what he's saying. Like, the people need something to do and they want something to celebrate. But what do you guys think about that rule? That if they they said all.
No, Houston does not deserve to get fans. They should be punished this year. If all Texas teams get it, then no, Houston should be excluded.
Could you imagine if football did that?
It'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, like no one's at Giant Stadium, but like you go to Dallas to play a game and there's 80,000 people there.
Yep. Did you hear what the Dolphins are going to do? Actually,
no.
They're turning their stadium into a drive-in movie theater.
That's nice.
I heard.
I think the Jets should do
that. Yeah, I heard the Mets did that.
Maybe they should play some football movies so that the fans can go there and watch a team win for once.
Draft Day.
God.
Cleveland's best movie.
Okay.
That was a great movie.
I knew I shouldn't have brought up John Heyman. I knew that was a bad idea.
I honestly, I don't mind if teams can have fans if their local governments allow it. I wouldn't mind that because it would put pressure on our governments to do it, and I mean, I'm not a big, quarantine guy, so that's how I'd like to see. And Boston just canceled the Boston Marathon today, which was scheduled for September.
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't plan on doing anything before September, apparently, and then flu season starts. Flu season starts 2 months after that. Yeah. So I don't think Boston's going to be. Boston's not going to be doing anything until the middle of 2021 at the earliest, and I would assume New York's in the same boat.
Isn't this the first time the Boston Marathon's been canceled in like 125 years or something?
Yeah, man.
They just don't
Probably.
do it. That's what I heard on the radio today, something like that. So that's why they moved it to September, because they didn't want to cancel it.
That's whack.
Yep.
And I don't see why September would really be a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so. But it's all politics, in my opinion. But.
And that is exactly what we do not ever talk about on 27 Down, because nobody wants to hear that on a sports podcast.
This is 27 Down, the perfect podcast for the perfect game. Thanks for watching today, guys. It was a good show. Thanks for coming on,
Terry, man, thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
All right, take care, buddy.